Have you ever wondered about the rules that govern conflicts, especially when it comes to the buildings and services that everyday life depends on? How are hospitals, water treatment plants, or even roads safeguarded when fighting breaks out? It is a complex question with very clear answers grounded in international law. International humanitarian law, often referred to as the laws of armed conflict, rigorously protects civilian infrastructure by prohibiting direct attacks against objects that are not military objectives. This fundamental principle ensures that civilian structures and services, which are vital for survival and well-being, remains largely intact and operational during hostilities, aiming to minimize suffering and prevent a complete breakdown of society. The core mechanism for this protection lies in the principle of distinction. This principle mandates that parties to an armed conflict must always distinguish between civilian objects and military objectives. Military objectives are defined as those objects which, by their nature, location, purpose, or use make an effective contribution to military action and whose total or partial destruction, capture, or neutralization, in the circumstances ruling at the time, offers a definite military advantage. All other objects are considered civilian and are protected from attack. This distinction is crucial because it limits the scope of legitimate targets and underscores why hospitals, schools, and homes are generally off-limits. Practically speaking, this means that those planning or executing attacks must take all feasible precautions to avoid, or at least minimize, harm to civilian objects. This includes choosing means and methods of warfare that avoid or minimize incidental harm to civilian objects, and refraining from launching an attack if it is expected to cause incidental loss of civilian life, injury to civilians, or damage to civilian objects, which would be excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. Essentially, military planners must constantly weigh the anticipated military gain against the potential civilian harm, ensuring proportionality in every action. It is also important to note the concept of dual-use objects. These are structures like bridges, communication networks, or power grids that serve both civilian needs and could potentially be used for military purposes. If such an object is genuinely being used for military purposes at the time of an attack, it can lose its protected status and become a legitimate military objective. However, even then, the principles of proportionality and precautions in attack must still be strictly observed, ensuring that the civilian suffering caused is not excessive compared to the military advantage gained. The burden is always on the attacking party to make this assessment carefully. Ultimately, the protection of civilian infrastructure under international humanitarian law is about upholding humanity in the midst of armed conflict. By establishing clear boundaries and demanding careful consideration in targeting decisions, it aims to preserve the essential fabric of civilian life. These rules are designed to ensure that even when conflict rages, the fundamental services and objects necessary for survival and human dignity are safeguarded, leading to less devastation and a quicker path to recovery once the fighting ends.